Train the muscles, not the joints.
Welcome back to Natural Land Bodybuilding, and today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about set threshold. What is that? Why do you even want to know what it is? Is it even necessary to understand? Well, I have news for you, my friend. If you want to be a self-thinker, a freedom fighter in your natural bodybuilding path, well, you need to understand that set threshold is a thing. Mountain. So what do I mean by set threshold? Well, what you're going to find is that you're going to do a certain number of sets in your training and find out that you get a certain amount of results for a period of time, but then you may stagnate or plateau. And there are a few options open to you at that time, whether it's increasing the weight, whether it's lowering the weight, doing more reps, whether it's increasing your frequency, or whether it's increasing the amount of volume in a given workout. And all of these things are this big soup called your workout program, and you will find that there is the perfect mixture of sets, frequency, reps, and so forth. Now, one part of this is the set threshold. So if we make everything else a constant, say you're doing a 2-day split or a 3-day split or whatever split it is that you're doing, and every variable is constant, you're using the same weight, the same rep range, all that sort of thing, you're going to notice that there is a certain amount of sets that you start to grow from and get results from, and a certain amount of sets that you stagnate from, whether it's too much or too little. Right? So what your job is to push the boundaries and then find out whether your body's pushing back or not. And probably the most frustrating thing for beginners, and it was frustrating for me in the beginning as well, is understanding the physical sensations that are associated with growing muscle and with losing muscle. So what I'm going to say is that there is a certain workout, and a lot of you guys have probably had it, where you feel super saturated, super pumped, super strong. And then when you come back into the gym again, you feel like everything is superly coordinated, and it's like you've got this rubbery feeling in the muscles where everything seems to be refined, like there's this perfect groove, everything is going up and moving easily. This is probably a good sign that your eating, your sleeping, and your training is on the right track. So assuming that all the variables stay the same, and you notice that you're not getting results, perhaps you may be one of these people that needs to increase the amount of sets in your training. Maybe you need to do an experiment and say, I'm going to add a couple extra sets and see what happens. Or I'm going to make sure that I hit absolute failure in a set and maybe do a couple less sets and see if that stimulates my body. And I have a common question from people. They ask me, how long should I try this technique? How long should I try this new program before I know whether it works or not? And my answer to you is that as you become more advanced, you'll be able to measure and understand what's going on in the body at a faster rate. But at first, it usually takes about 2 to 3 weeks for you to see any results or not. But once you become more advanced, you're going to know what the sensations are like in the body that precede physical results, right? Like I know the feeling that's in my body before I know that something is going to grow, right? I can actually feel it. I can feel almost the super pumpy and lumpy feeling that follows me around for the next day or two after I train. And that usually will tell me that my eating and my sleeping and my training is on point and that something is going to happen. And the other thing to also note is that when you're training with a certain rep range and a certain amount of sets, that is enough stimulus at times for your body to grow, but sometimes it gets stubborn. Sometimes the body will say, okay, that's it. I don't need to grow anymore. I don't need to do anything different. I don't need to adapt. I'm already adapted fine for the amount of stimulus you're giving me. So sometimes you need to up the sets a bit. I remember a few years back, I was going to the gym and doing 5-6 sets for legs most of the time in my workouts. And that's usually more than sufficient enough to get optimal results. But this one night I said, I'm just going to push the envelope. I'm going to do 10 sets of squats, as close to failure as I can, and see what happens. And I noticed that night that my overall system got kicked in somehow. And the funny thing is, my wife is a very powerful energetic healer. She's world renowned for what she does. When I walked in the door, she said, you did something different today in your training. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She goes, something happened. I could tell that you did enough for something to happen for your body to grow, which is kind of one of those supernatural sort of experiences that I don't really talk about too much, but this is the craziness that is in my life. But the bottom line is that she was right, because my legs and my ass and everything started growing over the next week or two, and I noticed my pants started fitting tighter and everything, and it was because I pushed a little bit into a deeper level of stimulus for my body. And that is what was needed at the time. It doesn't mean I needed to do 10 sets all the time, but sometimes you need to push the envelope a bit just to experiment and see if you are training hard enough or not. So once in a while, like I said, break your own rules, find out whether you're growing or not. And if you're doing a program for 3 weeks and you're getting no results, definitely something has to change. I'm not saying you need to get massive results, but I mean, if you're not getting one extra rep on anything, or if you're not noticing that the muscles are feeling different, you're not noticing that there's no kind of pumpy and lumpy feeling in the body, maybe you could benefit from upping the amount of sets in your training or upping the amount of volume. So don't be afraid to experiment with that from time to time, because sometimes it is necessary. Now, of course, there's going to be a point of diminishing return when it comes to volume. And again, this is where we talk about the other variables, because once you start raising the weight, then sometimes your volume has to come back down again, because heavier weight is going to have a different effect on the system than lighter weight and more reps, right? So as you gain in strength, don't be surprised if sometimes you're like, oh wow, I don't need as many sets. Sometimes I need less sets at first in order to get the same results or better results. And then from there, you start over again. And then maybe you start with lower volume and then you increase your volume gradually over time to a certain point, right? Because there is a point of diminishing return, like I said, and if you do too many sets, then you start to flatten out and feel like crap and overtrain, right? So yeah, I just thought this was worth talking about because I had a few questions about this in the comments. So yes, there is a critical threshold point in volume, and you're going to have to experiment a little bit to see where this is. And I don't think anybody's going to be able to tell you that doing this exact amount of sets is the perfect program for everybody. But generally speaking, I found 5 or 6 sets is enough for most people, but you're going to have to play around with the parameters here and there. And depending on your frequency, this will also affect how many sets you should be doing for a given body part. Mountain. So I hope this helps out in your training. Thanks a lot for watching. And if you need to get a hold of me, just go to naturalgallantbodybuilding.com. And thanks to the Patreon supporters, and take care for now. And if you are having trouble recovering, I have a new natural remedy. It's called the Exercise Recovery Leaf. And what you do is you just rub the leaf on you a little bit on a sore area of the muscle, and instantaneously you will have bigger muscles, pumpy and lumpy. And yeah, some of the leaves may have holes in them like this one, but don't worry about that, right? Again, just send $55.95. I'll let you try the first leaf for cheaper. These will go up in price because, of course, as you can see, there's a limitation of leaves around. And yeah, you can increase your recovery pronto. People say, you know, people on YouTube are corrupt because they sell products and services that don't work. Come on, this is like best thing I've ever seen. Try it out. These guys did, I'm pretty sure. Thanks, guys. Mountain.